the one who seeks him, it is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Some people will look back at 2011 and say, wow, the Packers sure were good back then. They have been going through some rough times lately. They haven't had the same sort of success. Aaron Rodgers has been injured. It's just not the way it used to be. Even though 2011 was only 7 years ago, they'll still look back like these were fond memories from the past. But people who are a little bit older will say, forget about Aaron Rodgers. I remember when the Packers were actually really good. I remember when they were so good that they went to the NFC Championship game 3 years in a row. They had a different quarterback then. His name was Brett Favre. That's when they were really good. That's when Brett Favre won MVPs. That's when the Packers were a respected team, but it's just not that same way anymore. I remember back when they had never lost a home game in the playoffs. That's when they were really good. But those who are a little bit older will remember back even farther. And they'll say, I remember back in the 1960s when the Packers won 4 world championships in 6 years. That's when they were really good. And other people might look back even farther, back to the 40s when they also won 3 years in a row. And say, you know what? You don't know what you're talking about. The Packers used to be good, but they're not anymore. The point isn't that the Packers have been good for a very long time. We recognize that. But people tend to look back fondly and say, man, it's just not the way it used to be. It's not like the glory days anymore. They used to be good, they used to have success, and now they're just average. It's become somewhat popular to blame millennials for the church being in decline. People saying kids these days, they don't respect their elders, they don't read the Bible, they don't know anything about God's Word, they don't come to church. It's not like it used to be. And when people say things like that, I have to disagree with them to a certain extent, because I'm a millennial, and I see millennials who are in the pews today, but I understand what they're saying. Because if you look at the statistics between people who were born in 1945 and people who were born in 1995, there's been almost a 50% drop between people who say they go to church every single week. There's been about a 50% drop for people who say religion is very important in their lives. There's been almost a 50% drop between people who were born in 1945 and people who were born in 1995 who say that they pray every single day. So I understand when people say it doesn't seem like it's the way it used to be. And then there's things that are on TV. In the 1950s, there were, 2 or 3 channels, and it was the news and variety shows. That's what was on TV, and it was Leave It to Beaver, and everything was pure and wholesome and good. And now there are thousands of channels, and there's nudity and language and alcohol abuse on pretty much every single one of them. So I understand when people say it's not the way it used to be. And if you look at cultural shifts, things that are allowed to be on the radio, and the way that people speak when they're in public, it's true, but it's not the way it used to be. And the devil would have you believe that there's no hope, that the culture will continue to decline, that Christians will be persecuted in America, which is a fairly new thing, I suppose, and this will just continue being the way it is for the rest of time until America falls and China takes over or some other nation, and then there's one nation that's in control of everything, and I don't know about all that, but it's true that it's not the way it used to be. And when we look at the book of Lamentations, that's, in a sense, sort of the theme. As far as we know, it was written by the prophet Jeremiah. There's some people who say it wasn't written by Jeremiah, but they don't have any other reasonable alternatives to who wrote it. So, as far as we can tell, it was written by Jeremiah after the city of Jerusalem was destroyed. And this is a man who spent his entire life preaching to these people, trying to get them to turn. And if you read the book of Jeremiah, you see the struggle that he went through. For him to say, these are the people that I'm preaching to, and they don't listen to me. My own family has rejected me. And then God says, Jeremiah, if you think this is bad, it's it's going to get a whole lot worse. So that by Lamentations chapter 1, Jeremiah is commenting on the fall of Jerusalem and the way that things have been. The way that the city is destroyed and the people have been taken away into captivity. They've been worshiping false gods. It's just terrible. And then he comments on the things that have happened to him. I have seen myself go from a young man to an old man, and still nothing has changed. The people still have rejected me. They don't listen to me. The city was destroyed. I'm one of the only people that's left. What have I spent my entire life doing? Things aren't the way they used to be. This generation has fallen, and they don't worship their God anymore. And they all hate me too. And Jeremiah recognized that God was in control over all things, and God could have changed things if he had wanted. He could have made Jeremiah's life a whole lot easier. So why didn't he? Why did it seem that things just kept on getting worse? And then Jeremiah remembers something. Then Jeremiah remembers the promises of God that he would never leave his people. And so he says the words that should be very familiar to many of you. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. You might remember the King James Version, which says, your mercies are new every morning. But still, Jeremiah realized that there was hope for the future. There was hope for all these young men who had been taken away into captivity. The Lord still would restore his people and bring them back and build them up once again. Would the Lord do that in 2018? Those of you who have been around for a while, those of you who can say the same sort of words that Jeremiah could say, I am old now. I have lived a long life. I have seen things deteriorate. Is there still hope for this generation and generations for the future? Satan would have you believe that there isn't. But Jeremiah would remind you, it's because of the Lord's great love that we are not consumed. His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. And in time, the people of Jerusalem who had been taken away into captivity were brought back. And it wasn't anyone from that generation, but it was their children who were brought back. They were brought back and the city was rebuilt, the temple was rebuilt, and worship to the Lord continued once again. And then about 500 years after that, God the Father sent his Son, Jesus Christ, who was born on earth, who lived a perfect life, and who died on the cross to pay for all the sins of those people. For generations who abandoned him, God brought forgiveness. For people that he had cast out and sent away into captivity, God brought them back and forgave their sins. To a generation of Christians who have given up on him, who have said, God will not hear us. There's no sense in doing mission work and doing outreach because it can't be done. We're going to give up. Jesus would forgive them for their pessimism and lack of faith. And he would restore them once again to trust in him and believe that the Lord's salvation is still coming for them. Jesus Christ has taken away all of your sins. Not because you did anything to earn them, but because he loves you. So you know that it is good to wait for the Lord's salvation. But let me make a further comment about the young people growing up today. They have a different struggle than some of you have had. Some of you have lived and seen the moral quality in America continue to decline. People don't seem to have the same character that they used to, and that's true. It is true if you say that. I will admit that. I will acknowledge that. You are right. And so you've seen the subtle decline over time in the way that things have been. But people growing up now, they don't know anything different. They've inherited a world where Everybody on TV, everybody around them says it doesn't matter who you have sex with or when. It doesn't matter what you watch, it doesn't matter what you listen to. It just matters that you have the freedom to choose your own life. It doesn't matter what any religious book says, what any religious expert says. You just get to choose for yourself. And that's how you have the most fulfilling and happy life. There's a generation of people that are growing up and hearing that message. And that's a different message than the one that many of you heard. But that's what they have. That's not what they chose. That's just the world that they live in. So they're going to have struggles in their life, different from the ones that you have. They're going to face so many temptations from the internet, from TV, from the radio. Do people still listen to the radio? From the radio if they listen to that. But they're going to face temptations from their friends. People say, how intolerant you are. How can you think that? This is the year 2018. And next year they'll say, this is the year 2019. How can you be so backwards? They're going to be tempted and they're going to face persecution far worse than the one you faced. And yet, Jeremiah says, that sort of pressure put on them by others, that sort of trouble and the struggle that they'll go through will be very good for them. Because it will build them up. And it will reinforce in them that for as much pressure as we face from other people, they don't have the answers. We know that God does. We know that we can rely on Him. So Jeremiah says, words that are very challenging for us to hear, but that are important for us to remember. It is good for a man to bear the yoke while he is young. Let him sit alone in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. There may yet be hope. So whether you're old or young, I encourage you to remember that that pressure and persecution and temptation that you face, don't give in to it. The Lord has allowed this to be in your life for a reason. To test you and to build you up so that you might be even more firmly entrenched knowing Him and knowing His salvation. You've seen the hopelessness and despair of people around you. Of people looking in every sort of direction for what the reason of life is, for what might give them hope. They're not going to find it. They're not going to find lasting, eternal happiness in any of those places. But you have that right now. And for as much trouble and struggles as you'll have to go through, continue to rely on the Lord. Continue to do those things that people are giving up on. Continue to have hope in religion. Not just hope in religion, but hope in Jesus. Continue to pray daily because you know that your Lord will answer your prayers. Continue to come to worship and be strengthened by the Word and the sacrament so that you can have the strength to go on. You won't have that strength in yourselves, but the Lord will provide it. Salvation always comes from the Lord. So no, things aren't like they used to be. 2018 is very different from 1968 or 1958, or the generations that went before it. I graduated from Shore Lutheran High School. When I was on the baseball team, we won a regional championship. And let me tell you, things were pretty good back then. When I go back and I see my brothers on the team, it's pretty sad, man. The lack of success, the number of people that strike out over and over again. I mean, they don't have the pitching they used to, they don't have the fielding they used to, they're just not as disciplined. I don't know what it is with kids these days, but man, they just don't have respect for their elders. And so when I see the team on the field, I think back to the glory days. To 2008 when we were winning a regional championship and I was the pitcher, I was the winning pitcher on the field. Man, those were the good days. But then I think back to when I was a student. And I looked up on the banners on the wall, and in 1994 and 1995, Shoreland won 2 consecutive state championships in baseball when my uncles were on the team. And I think that when they saw my team, they must have been thinking, man, this team actually used to be good. Maybe things don't change quite as much as we think they do. But in America, over the last 50 years, things have changed. We're in a different environment than they used to. Worship attendance is down across the board, not just here at St. James, not just here in Wells churches in Milwaukee, but in the Episcopal Church, and in the Baptist Church, and in the Catholic Church. Attendance is down. The amount of people that seem to care about Jesus is down. So what are we going to do? How are we going to have hope? What is the answer for the future? The Lord still has salvation. We're going to wait for His. Amen.